Look at your hair color right now. Not at the cut, not at the length, not at the texture, just the color. Because what I am about to tell you is something most colorists will never say out loud. And it is the reason that so many women over 60 spend hundreds of dollars every few months on color and still walk away from the mirror feeling like something is off. Like the color is doing something to their face that they cannot quite name. Like they look somehow older after the appointment than they did before it. That feeling is not your imagination. And it is almost never about the gray. Here is what is actually happening. There are 6 specific color mistakes that women over 60 make consistently, and most of them are made not in spite of good intentions but because of them. Because someone told you lighter is better after 60. Because someone told you to cover the gray completely. Because you have been doing the same thing for so long that you stopped questioning whether it was still working. By the end of this video, you are going to see exactly what those 6 mistakes are, why each one is quietly aging your face in ways that go far beyond the color itself, and what to do differently starting at your very next appointment. The number 1 mistake on this list is the one that surprises every single woman I share it with. It is the most counterintuitive, the most impactful, and the most fixable. It is waiting at the very end. Do not skip ahead. What we are building toward is going to change the way you think about color for the rest of your life. Before we count down, let me ask you something. When was the last time someone looked at your hair and said it looked genuinely alive? Not just covered, not just done, alive, dimensional. Like the color had depth and warmth and something moving in it. If that feels like a long time ago, I want you to hold that feeling, because by the time we reach number 1, you are going to understand exactly why it has been missing and exactly how to get it back. Number 6. Going too light all over. This is the mistake that gets recommended the most and questioned the least. The advice sounds logical on the surface. As the skin lightens and the features soften with age, go lighter with the hair to match. Blend everything together. Keep it soft. The problem is that all-over lightness does not soften anything. It erases things. When the hair is uniformly pale from root to tip with no variation in tone, it removes the very contrast that defines your features. The face needs something to frame it. It needs a point of reference. And when the hair is the same pale tone as the complexion, both the hair and the face disappear into each other. The result is not a soft, fresh look. It is a washed-out look. A look that reads as colorless rather than luminous. I see this constantly on women who have been going lighter for years, adding a little more brightness each time, following the logic that if lighter is better than lighter still must be better still. And at some point along that progression, something shifted. The hair stopped looking fresh and started looking flat. The face stopped looking lifted and started looking tired. And nobody said anything because the color was technically clean and the roots were technically covered and everything was technically fine. Technically fine is not the same as genuinely beautiful. Your hair at 60 deserves better than technically fine. The fix is not going dramatically darker. The fix is dimension. Depth at the root, variation through the mid-lengths, lightness at the ends and around the face where the light naturally hits. That contrast is what gives hair life. That variation is what makes color look expensive rather than processed. We are going to come back to exactly how to achieve that when we reach number 1. Hold on to that thought. I want to give you a specific test you can do right now before your next appointment. Go to a window in your home with natural daylight coming through it. Stand facing the light. Look at your hair in a mirror. Notice where the light catches the hair and creates brightness. Notice where the hair looks flat and dark and absorbs the light rather than reflecting it. If the answer to that second question is everywhere, all of it flat and uniform from root to tip, that is the all-over lightness problem in action. Natural light is the most honest mirror your hair color will ever face, and what it reveals is almost always different from what the salon lighting showed you when you approved the color at the end of your appointment. Number 5. Using the wrong undertone for your current skin. This one is subtle and it is devastating. And it happens because most women choose their hair color based on what they used to look good in rather than what their skin actually looks like today. Here is what changes as skin matures. The warm pink undertones that most fair complexions had in their 30s and 40s gradually shift. The skin becomes more neutral, sometimes more yellow or olive in tone, and the natural ruddiness that used to balance a cool hair color softens and recedes. This means that a hair color that looked stunning on you at 42 can look harsh and aging on the same face at 62, not because you changed, but because the relationship between your skin's undertone and the hair's undertone changed. The most common version of this mistake is staying with a cool, ashy blue-toned hair color on a face whose skin has moved toward neutral or warm. Cool ash blonde or cool silver on a face with warm or neutral undertones creates a visual clash that reads as pallor. The face looks slightly gray. The skin looks less healthy than it actually is. The overall impression is one of someone who is not quite well, rather than someone who has made a deliberate and beautiful color choice. What works better on most faces over 60 is a hair color with warm or neutral undertones, not orange, not brassy, but a silver or blonde or gray that has a slight warmth in it, a hint of gold or pearl or champagne that warms the face rather than cooling it further. The difference between a cool flat silver and a warm luminous silver on the same face can look like 10 years. Not because of the color itself, but because of how the undertone interacts with the skin around it. Ask your colorist to look at your skin in natural light before choosing a toner. That single conversation changes everything about how the finished color reads on your specific face. And here is something worth knowing about the natural light test. The same color that looks warm and luminous in the yellow tone light of most salons can look flat and cool and slightly greenish in the daylight you actually live your life in. This is why so many women leave appointments feeling pleased and arrive home feeling deflated. The color has not changed. The light has. Ask your colorist to walk with you to a window or outside before you leave the chair. If they are confident in the undertone they chose, they will not hesitate. If they seem reluctant, that tells you something important about how much they are thinking about your specific skin and your specific life rather than their own preferred palette. Number 4. Coloring the entire head the same shade as the roots. This is the mistake that makes color look like a wig. And I say that not to be unkind, but because that is precisely the visual impression it creates, and most women have no idea it is happening. Here is the physics of natural hair color. No one in the history of human beings has ever had hair that was exactly the same shade from the scalp to the ends. Natural hair is always darker at the root and lighter at the mid-lengths and ends, because the hair closest to the scalp is the newest and most pigmented, while the hair that has been exposed to sun and air and time has naturally lightened and varied. That variation is what makes hair look like hair, instead of a fiber cap placed on top of a head. When you apply a single all-over color from root to tip at the same depth and tone, you eliminate that natural variation entirely. The result is a uniformity that the human eye immediately reads as artificial. Even if the color itself is beautiful in isolation, the flatness of it signals to every person looking at you that what they are seeing is not your hair. It is a coating on your hair. And coatings, however well applied, always look like coatings. The solution is to stop thinking of color as something you apply to all of your hair and start thinking of it as something you apply differently to different parts of your hair. Roots need depth, mid-lengths need transition, ends and face framing pieces need light. That 3-zone approach is what separates color that looks like color from color that looks like hair. There is a way to communicate this to your colorist that cuts through any confusion immediately. Tell them you want the color to look like it grew that way, not like it was done, like it grew. Those 4 words, it grew that way, tell a skilled colorist that you understand what natural variation looks like and that you want it recreated rather than eliminated. Any colorist who understands their craft will immediately know what technique to reach for. Any colorist who responds with confusion or who pushes back toward all-over application is telling you something useful about how they think about hair. The goal of color after 60 is never to look like you colored your hair. The goal is to look like your hair is simply and beautifully doing what it is supposed to do. Number 3. Neglecting the hairline and the face framing pieces. If I could point to one area of the head where color decisions have the single greatest impact on how old or how young someone looks, it would be here. The 2 inches of hair that frame the face at the temples, the forehead, and along the cheeks. No other area of the entire head is more visible, more noticed, or more directly connected to how the face reads in photographs and in person. And yet this is precisely the area that most women and most colorists treat as an afterthought. The all-over color goes on, it covers the root, and the hairline gets whatever the rest of the head is getting. No special consideration, no deliberate placement, no thought about the fact that these particular strands are the ones that sit directly adjacent to the skin of the face and will either warm it or cool it or brighten it or flatten it for the next 6 to 8 weeks. Think about the photographs that you love of yourself versus the ones you do not. The ones you love almost always have one thing in common. The hair near your face is catching light. There is brightness there, a warmth, a luminosity that draws the eye toward your features rather than away from them. That is not an accident of good photography. That is color placement. Specifically, it is the result of someone deliberately placing lighter pieces close to the face where they catch the light and reflect it back toward the skin. When that is missing, when the hairline is the same depth as the rest of the hair or darker than it should be, the face loses its frame. The eyes look smaller. The cheekbones recede. The skin reads as duller than it actually is. And this happens regardless of how well the rest of the color is done, because the eye always travels to the face first. And what frames the face is what the eye sees first. Here is what deliberate color at the hairline does. When the pieces that frame the face are slightly lighter than the rest of the hair, slightly warmer, slightly brighter, they create a halo effect around the face that reads as natural light. The skin looks more luminous. The eyes look more open. The features look more lifted. It is the hair equivalent of putting a ring light on the face, and it costs nothing extra if you ask for it correctly. Ask your colorist to place your brightest, warmest pieces at the hairline, not all over the top, not scattered randomly. Specifically at the temples, along the forehead, and at the cheeks. Those placements catch the light every time you move, every time you smile, every time someone looks at you. They are, without question, the most important strands on your entire head. Number 2. Trying to cover the gray completely. I know. You have been covering gray since you first noticed it, maybe for decades. It feels like maintenance. It feels like the right and necessary thing. It feels like the alternative, visible gray roots, is somehow a statement of giving up or letting go or not caring anymore. Here is what I want to tell you, and I want you to really sit with this for a moment. Full coverage color on hair that is significantly gray does not look younger. It looks covered. And those are not the same thing. In fact, for many women over 60, full coverage color creates a specific aging effect that is almost never talked about. And it happens for a biological reason that has nothing to do with the color itself. Here is the reason. As the face matures, the skin's own coloring becomes less saturated. The cheeks are a little less pink. The lips are a little less defined. The overall complexion becomes slightly more muted. In that context, hair that is saturated with a single rich all-over color can read as too much. The contrast between the highly saturated hair and the more muted complexion creates an imbalance that reads as artificial and, paradoxically, as aging. The hair looks like it belongs to a younger version of the face. And when something looks like it belongs to a different version of the face itself looks older by comparison. What works better is semi-coverage or partial coverage that allows some of the natural gray or silver to remain visible, blended and softened rather than hidden. This does two things. First, it reduces the saturation contrast between the hair and the complexion, creating a more harmonious overall look. Second, it allows the natural texture and dimension of gray hair to contribute to the final result, which is almost always more interesting and more alive than a single full coverage tone applied on top of it. This does not mean you have to embrace full gray tomorrow if you are not ready. It means considering whether your current level of coverage is genuinely serving your face or whether it is serving an idea about what you should be doing that you adopted a long time ago and never revisited. And now, number 1, the mistake that outweighs every other mistake on this list. The one that I have watched fix color that should not have worked and ruin color that should have been perfect. The mistake that is so widespread and so accepted that most colorists do not even think of it as a mistake at all. They think of it as the standard approach. Number 1. Choosing flat single process color over dimensional highlighting technique. Let me explain what I mean by dimensional, because this word gets used in the beauty industry in ways that are vague and confusing, and what I am describing is specific and technical, and it matters enormously. Single process color means applying one color formula to all of your hair in one step. It is efficient, it is consistent, and on young hair with natural variation already present, it can look beautiful. On hair over 60, which has already been colored repeatedly for years and which has a different porosity and a different texture than younger hair, single process color does something very specific. It creates flatness. A uniform flatness that covers the entire head in the same depth, the same tone, the same sheen, and the same light reflecting quality from root to tip. And flat color on a face that is naturally gaining dimension and depth looks like exactly what it is. A flat coat of paint, dimensional highlighting technique is the opposite of this in every meaningful way. Instead of one color applied everywhere, it involves placing multiple tones through the hair in a specific pattern. Darker pieces woven near the root to add depth, medium pieces through the body of the hair to create movement, lighter, brighter pieces placed specifically at the hairline, the crown, and anywhere the light naturally hits the hair when you are standing in a room. The result is hair that appears to move even when it is still, hair that catches the light differently from different angles. Hair that has what natural hair has, which is the suggestion that it grew this way rather than that it was made this way, on gray and silver hair specifically. This technique is transformative in a way that no other color approach can match. Natural gray is not one color. It is 10 colors in the same head. Bright white at some temples, deeper pewter at the crown, softer silver through the mid-lengths, occasionally warmer at the nape. That variation is beautiful when it is honored and enhanced. It becomes flat and institutional looking only when it is homogenized, either by covering it all or by toning it all to a single uniform shade. Ask your colorist for balayage or babelites or foliage on and around your natural gray. Ask for a technique that places lighter pieces at the hairline and darker depth at the root. Ask specifically for variation, not uniformity. And if your colorist suggests a single process gloss or toner applied all over as the entire color service, understand that while this can be a lovely finishing touch, it cannot on its own replace the dimension that hand-placed highlights create. Let me tell you about Patricia. She was 63 when she came in, and she had been getting the same full coverage chestnut brown single process color every 6 weeks for 14 years. It covered her gray completely. The color was applied perfectly, and she looked, in my honest professional opinion, at least 10 years older than she needed to. When I explained the dimensional approach to her, she was skeptical in the way that women often are when someone suggests changing something they have trusted for a long time. She asked, "Won't highlights look fake? Won't they look too young?" And I told her what I am telling you now. The goal is not highlights that look like highlights. The goal is color that looks like the most beautiful version of your own hair on the best day you ever had. Color that looks found rather than applied. We did a full balayage service, placing depth at her roots in a shade slightly cooler than her natural base, transitioning through warm caramel tones at the mid-lengths, and ending with soft champagne and pearl pieces at the hairline and the crown. We left some of her natural gray visible, woven into the painted sections as part of the composition rather than hidden beneath it. She looked at herself for a very long time. Then she said, "I look like I've been on holiday, not younger, not done, just radiant, like someone whose life had been genuinely good to her." That is what dimensional color does. It does not pretend. It reveals, here is what I want you to do before your next color appointment. Take 3 photographs of yourself in natural daylight, 1 from the front, 1 from each side. Look at where the light naturally lands on your hair. The places that catch the sun are where your highlights should live. The places that stay in shadow are where your depth should be. Show those photographs to your colorist and say, "I want color that works with this light patternether than against it." That one instruction is worth more than any color formula or any product line. It tells a skilled colorist everything they need to know about where to place what. A few final things before you go. The first is the toning conversation. Whatever color service you choose, ask specifically about the toner being used to finish it. Toners have an enormous impact on whether the final result looks warm and luminous or cool and flat. Ask also how long the toner will last, because some toners fade beautifully while others turn brassy quickly. This is a 30-second conversation that most women never have and that changes the result significantly. The second is the maintenance reality. Dimensional color, properly done, is almost always lower maintenance than full coverage single process color because it grows out beautifully. You can often go 10 to 12 weeks between appointments rather than 6. That is both better for your hair and better for your budget. The third is the photograph ritual. Take a photograph of yourself on the day you leave the salon, in natural daylight, when the color looks its absolute best. That photograph becomes your permanent reference. Bring it to every subsequent appointment. And take a second photograph 4 to 6 weeks later so you can see, honestly, how the color is evolving and whether there is anything about the grow out you want to address next time. Your hair color is not just a cosmetic decision. It is the filter through which every person who looks at you sees your face. You deserve color that reveals you at your most radiant, not color that covers, not color that hides. Color that lets people see exactly who you are in the most beautiful and honest light possible.